Hey y'all, welcome back. Again, we're still here at Forge Self-Defense Academy in Salem, Massachusetts with my dude Dennis. We're gonna look at some overhook stuff, overhook to front headlock. This is a sequence in a series that I hit oftentimes in grappling, especially on bigger people or people that do a really good job of keeping you from getting under them. So like doubles, hip tosses, things like that, they just have a pretty solid base. So I'll run this sequence on a lot of people. So I'm gonna start out in my overhook position here. Right? When I do the overhook, one of the big things that I talk to people about is thinking about like a newspaper grip. So right out of the gate, I'm pulling this elbow in towards the side of my body to make sure it's nice and tight. And I'm even thinking about taking this hand and I'm pushing it across my body. You can already start to see it starts to create a decent amount of leverage on Dennis. The way I usually teach people with overhooks is like I want him to not want the underhook. Instead of just trying to win the overhook, I want him to think like, oh, this is painful and uncomfortable. So the second that I end up here, I already start to kind of suck this in, right? Especially if I can get it close to the elbow, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a wrist grip on the far side, all right? From here, I'm gonna start to pull his head down by pulling on his arm. I'm gonna be putting extra leverage on this shoulder. All of these things to start to break his position down. And now to kind of tip his head forward and maybe even make him think about putting his hand on the floor for a second, I'm just gonna step and circle around him. Okay? Now that his head gets down, I can start transferring over to the head and starting to get myself like a pike position here. But I like to set this up on, especially with bigger guys, I like to break them down first. Maybe, like I said, get their hand to touch the floor, or at least get them to be worried about the threat of the snap down here. So as we go, I'm gonna circle, pinch on the arm, pull on the arm from this side just to get him to kind of duck his head down. And now that his head's down farther, I'm gonna come up to the head and I'm gonna reach my hand through. So I'm essentially getting like a rear naked choke grip on the back of his head, and I'm gonna saw this across. Now it's a super uncomfortable position. It's a ton of tension on his shoulder. To keep him from actually pulling his arm out, I'm gonna run my hips in. Now, best part about this for me is that I can go to a front headlock. I really like front headlocks. So I'll drive over, really aggressive, really heavy, over to that top front headlock position. So I'm using all these little pieces of leverage and pressure really just to break down the structure. I'm not a huge guy, 175 pounds, so I want to start getting somebody that's like Dennis' size to break him down. I need all these little nuances, all these little angles, all these little drops, all these little shifts if I'm going to take that top position, right? So I'm pushing on the arm, pulling on the arm, take my step to the outside, come over the head, get my bicep, and I start to saw through the head. Once I saw through the head, I can punch over top, super aggressive. Whoa, and I'm gonna drive my chest down into my front headlock. Now, two basic options from here. One, this way, is depending on what we're doing here, I'm still giving a lot of pressure. I like to create leverage on this arm to make him kind of think for a second that maybe there's like some kind of a straight arm lock here or something weird, yeah, to get him to go to cross, right? So I'm using my hip, kind of pushing out towards the outside. If I'm in the elbow, it's obviously not gonna work. Plus, I'm giving him my leg, that's never good. So I'm kind of stepping that foot back, but I'm trying to stay in contact with the forearm, and I'm still giving that cross pressure here. He doesn't like it, he starts to kind of escape that hand out. That gives me the clear. And then usually what I'll do is I'll either try to scoop the tricep, or I might even just circle to the outside and start to set up like a cradle from here, and I kind of dump him over. So that's once I get to my front headlock, I start to kind of leverage on the arm, pass it, either go to my cradle or start to shift through here, right? The other thing I like to do from here, if he's doing a pretty good job, maybe he's pulling up high on the hip, I can't quite create the leverage there, I still get my hips back, I start acting like I'm walking this way, attacking this leg, and then as he goes to push that direction, I'm essentially gonna like European uppercut across, and I'm gonna punch the head past. So we're right into here, I'm moving towards the outside, punch the head past, come around the back, grab the backside hips there. He's already circling that direction, so I'm really just passing him, and then I just gotta complete the circle. So technically if I was actually going back, I'm moving here, punch the head, end up on the back. We can attack all that kind of fun stuff. So real quick synopsis of everything we just talked about. Overhook to get into our front headlock. Push down towards the elbow, pull down on the hand, get him to drop his head, push on the head to pike, use this lovely little chopping motion to seesaw across, get my front headlock. I can collapse the arm to the inside, start to attack the leg, or I can circle to the outside, throw his head by, and up on the back. So that's like a whole series that I've hit more times than I can count on a ton of different people, different skill levels, stuff like that. So it's something that may work for you, something you can have a little bit of fun with, definitely something to play around with. And for a self-defense perspective, man, if I can get somebody to shove their head down and just start to collapse them and bundle them up in a tiny little ball, it can be beneficial. Okay? So check that out, have some fun. See y'all next time.